Hey, it's the MiDentity Podcast. You found us here in Cyber World. Glad to have you along. We've got a phenomenal show today. I've been looking forward to this one for a long time. This is Jake and Megan Desjarnet. They're going to be talking about a no such thing love story. Stay tuned. Let's get started.
Welcome to the MiDentity Podcast, where we like to say my DNA is different. Hear the conversations and stories from people learning how to engage life from an all things new reality. That your purpose and that your identity isn't determined by what you do. This is the MiDentity Podcast with Duran Mahan.
I am excited to have these guys right here. Can y'all see them? This is Jake and Megan Desjarnet. I've known these guys for about 2.5 years. They're a part of our community here in Thompson Station. And they are just a wealth of talent, a wealth of cool. And I just can't wait for you to hear their stories today. Welcome to the podcast, Jake and Megan.
Thanks for having us. This is going to be fun.
So we're going to talk about several things today. And I told them when we were I like doing this podcast where it's a very loose net. I don't like to do things where we're really rigid and you got 37 seconds to answer this question and don't deviate. We're going to go here. I deviate enough for all three of us, so I'll go into the weeds, but I'll try to keep everybody else. But I like to have a lot of free flow. So Jake was asking me what, kind of the premise of the show. Yeah. And I said, consider this the Howard Stern of life-giving, Jesus-loving storytelling podcasts. So we have no safety nets, no guardrails. We're going to go, and you guys just go where you want to go. And I shall follow. Lead me, and I shall follow. Cool. So let's just start at the beginning. Can we do that? So where did you guys meet, and where did all the love start?
Oh, man. Well, first, when you asked both of us to come on, I was a little nervous because I'm like, how much time do we have? Because I've done a couple podcasts. This is actually our first one together.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've done.
That's awesome.
I was looking back. I've done about 14 guest podcasts, and I've never got to do one with Jake. So I am a little bit nervous, but also very excited.
Is he that much of a loose cannon? You just don't know what he's going to say?
Yeah.
I'm going to try to be vocal. I tend to, if I'm not hiding behind an instrument, I'll just get real quiet.
Yeah, and I was reminding him today, I'm like, be your funny self. Yeah.
I have an acoustic in the room if you feel more comfortable holding it here.
So just hold it.
So how did you guys, let's go back to how you met. Or you can give a little background individually and then kind of merge the two roads into one.
Yeah, so it's, I grew up in a Christian home. I grew up in a spirit-filled home. And I am one of, many siblings, all that kind of stuff. And Jake, you tell a little bit brief about your, before we met.
We grew up in just a very loosely termed Christian home. We didn't go to church a lot. And I believed that there was a God, but I had so many questions. I had no idea that Jesus had anything to do with Christianity.
Yeah.
And, so that's kind of where I was coming from. God exists.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's all up for debate, right?
Who knows what else? Yeah. And so we met in high school. We met when we were 15 years old.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, what kind of sparked interest was I heard that he played on the worship team. So in my head, I was like, oh, this is this amazing godly man. He's probably a worship pastor.
He's a godly rock star.
And I found out later that the pastor, which was totally a God thing, pulled this young man in who was talented, but just gave him a spot on the worship team. And that honestly changed the trajectory of his life.
Totally.
So I found out he's on the worship team, and I'm thinking, oh, I just scored big here. And then we're hanging out. We really developed a friendship in the beginning.
Yeah.
This was in the era of kiss dating goodbye and all those fun things, you know.
Was super helpful for us.
It
was just encouraging, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the most encouraging thing for our relationship.
But we really were developing a really cool friendship. But when he asked me one day, he said, I just don't really understand what the whole Jesus thing's about. And I was like, oh, okay. Pump the brakes. We have a lot to talk about. No, so, but then, like I said, we developed this friendship where we truly became best friends first, and then pulled him into youth group because I was like, well, I sure as heck can't save you. So I'll leave that up to our youth pastors. And then we dove head first at a really young age into discipleship. We were extremely blessed to just be surrounded by a church body who wanted it to go deep. We needed those foundations to go deep. So, but as far as our love story, he was a super goofy guy in school, and I was super outgoing.
I remember my cousin and you were friends from like elementary school.
Yeah.
And so you guys were close, which made you in close proximity, but we had never really met. And before this, I had gotten hurt in football. Okay. So I tore like my ACL. No, I was not an athlete. But
that's why I tore my ACL.
His dad wanted him to be an athlete.
Yeah, I was trying.
But he was also like a built dude, so it was like, and we were from a small town. It was like, you have to play football.
Yeah.
So Megan's observing you all this time. She's like,
I knew everything.
He's a built dude. He's out of
No, so actually, our initial meeting, knowing the work I do now, which I'll get into later, our initial meeting's funny, which I think is what you're getting into, right?
Maybe.
Your assumptions.
Basically, I was in crutches.
Yeah.
Because I was recovering from that. You just couldn't bend it. If you bend it a certain way, it was like super duper painful. Other than that, you're basically fine.
Yeah.
So most of the time, I'm just walking with the crutches
holding
between
crutches.
Because it's just
not using them.
But if you did step on it wrong, it would be really bad. But anyways, I'm handicapped. And I see that Megan's handicapped, so we have that bonding point.
No, we don't.
Wow.
No, but I remember I walked up, and I don't know, because I was that kid.
Yeah.
But I just sat in your lap.
He's walked up to me. I don't know this kid. I don't even know his name. I know his cousin, and he walked up and he sat in my lap.
Really?
Yeah, just being funny. I think he had observed that like I wasn't this like super shy person. I was easygoing.
Right.
I had a lot of friends in high school. And I was like, who the heck is this? But I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
I think I was just testing the limits.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a nice introduction.
Yeah, I know,
so much
right?
for small talk. I'm going right to your lap, sweetheart.
No, it wasn't a coming onto her thing. It was just just I don't
friends.
know what I was.
Yeah,
I guess I was.
He was being goofy.
Being
so
funny.
I think that was a lot of our first interactions where he was just this super funny guy and I was super outgoing. We had mutual friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was quite funny. But the funny part is that once we started, obviously we have 10,000 stories we could go into about when we were younger, but once we realized, like, okay, we really like being around each other, this kid did not disappear. Yeah. He was at my parents' house every single day, and, he was at the time, he was into heavy metal music, and he's got these tattoos and these giant holes in his ears, and it was
rebel.
Like, who is this
Make
kid?
any mom proud.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let me tell you.
What you dream of for your daughter.
Yes.
Prince Charming.
Yes. So it was definitely one of those, like, my parents were gracious and just kind of let it play out a little bit, and then later learned, the true heart of Jake.
Oh, yeah. But behind the dude behind the tattoo.
The dude behind
the heart.
Don't let them fool
behind
you.
the tattoo. Yeah, man. So the dating relationship, there was nowhere to go but up when he just props onto your lap, and then he meets your family, and they.
We just would laugh and hang out all the time. We just were like immediate best friends.
Yeah.
So it took my cousin being kind of a link there, but then after a while, it was just me, you, and actually Ashley.
Mm-hmm.
We're all like three inseparable.
Yeah.
And we would just hang out all the time.
Yeah.
And I just, for whatever reason, never considered myself like a dating option.
Really?
Yeah, like, so girls, because in my mind, girls wouldn't be interested in me.
Yeah, you're just a good friend that always remains a good friend. Yeah.
And it's like, maybe someday, but I don't know how. That scares the crap out of me.
And, I had a whole wedding planned.
Yeah.
At
Already.
This point in my head. No, just
so
kidding.
she's
Not with
scheming,
Jake,
bro,
but-
and you have no idea.
Yeah. I've already written myself off, and she's got most of
She's like,
the
Jake
future
don't know
written
it,
down.
but he's toast. Put the butter on him, man. Hey, I've got everything lined up. His future is planned.
Yeah.
And, man, I remember that we were sitting, and I'm just going through all kinds of thoughts and stuff about relationships and stuff like that, and talking to you about it.
Yeah.
Because our friend Ashley was like at some point expressing that she liked me or something was like that, and then I'm
we can
hearing
all
about
joke
it
about
and
this
talking.
now.
Yeah,
We're
she's
all
happily
married and
We're all
it's
still
great.
really good
It's
friends.
great.
But it was a really pivotal point because it was like, well, I don't know how I should feel about that, and it's like, I don't know if I'm into that, and and she's like, well, I don't really want to talk about it because I like you, and so if you
And
want
he was like,
to
"Wait,
date
what?"
her, then go ahead, but I don't want to.
So you just put it out there. You're like, you know what? This is my moment.
That was
Yeah.
confident.
If I'm going to stake my claim or have any hope of doing so, I better interject right here.
And I was, obviously, you're a young girl. I was like 16 at the time. I wasn't going to be like, will you please?
Yeah.
But I just was like, hey, if he's going to keep bringing this up, like, I don't want to be the person to talk about it with him.
Yeah.
Because she was my best friend. And
man, yeah.
and this light bulb went on in his head. And he was like, "Wait, really?" And I was like,
huh,
"Yeah."
that could work.
See?
Yeah.
So it's easy. I mean, that's why I tell my kids, as when my wife and I were, that foundation of just a friendship,
Dude,
man.
yeah.
Loving just being together, hanging
Yeah.
out, laughing at goofy stuff, crazy
That is
things.
absolutely.
And that's what made it comfortable enough to even be able to go there. Is
Yeah.
we were friends. We were
Yeah.
friends. We didn't start off as this dating relationship thing. But I will say I was also pretty bold in the fact of I said once we kind of established that. Obviously, we had a couple more conversations. I was like, hey, but also like I don't just date. So like unless you plan to marry me someday, like I'm not really. And I
that is
I
awesome.
definitely thought that would. I wasn't saying now because we were 16.
Right.
But I definitely thought that was going to scare this boy off, and he was like, "Okay, let's do it." And I was
Wow.
like, "Wait, what?"
So was there any awkwardness like in that moment where we've just been great friends, we have a blast, and now it feels like we just took a hard left up here. So
a little
I mean,
bit.
was it awkward?
I mean, I guess awkward's a good way to put it, but not terribly.
yeah,
Like, it
you got
didn't-
over that, obviously.
Yeah, and I don't think, man, it didn't seem to hold anything back. I think it was just really, we were at that place in our relationship where she could express that to me, knowing that, hey, I like you, and if you don't like me, that's okay.
Yeah.
But
And we can
these
still
are
be
my
friends,
feelings, and
yeah.
I don't feel comfortable talking about that with this other person.
Yeah.
So just because I'm in this position, and she put it that way in such a way that it wasn't like make a choice.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, okay, and then I'm making choices. all of a
You
sudden.
are,
But yeah, it was a very. That's the only way I could have been in a relationship in high school.
So man, that is so cool though. And so when you guys you started, I guess, like officially dating. I mean, did he give
Yeah.
you his class ring?
You know.
No,
No, we
well,
again.
because of the kiss dating goodbye stuff, we like
Y'all didn't do that,
As far
okay.
as
No,
as
it was
far
like
as
about
anyone's concerned,
courtship
we were
and-
just friends.
Yeah.
we were just really good friends.
But everyone could tell.
It was obvious we loved each other even at a young age. But we had a lot of growing up to do. We were in high school. There was a lot.
Yeah.
There was a lot
How long
there.
were we?
So
How
we
long did
didn't
we date?
we started dating at what 16, 16 and
we get
we
married
got
at
engaged
22?
at 21.
Oh wow! So it was a
long
lengthy
time.
friendship, courtship.
Well, to the point of, I remember your mom came up to me like probably when I was 20 and was like, "So are you ever gonna ask Megan to marry you?"
And he's like, I'm allowed to do that.
And I was like,
Wow.
"You want that?" Because
So the parents were already on board with you, even
They
even
could
before you were
see-
thinking
I
that
think
way.
they could see it.
yes and no. They wanted her to be happy and stuff. And,
Sure.
I've already apologized about the tattoos, so we've kind of gotten over that. No, but I think they just want what's best for their daughter and all that kind of stuff,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
making sure that I'm not gonna take advantage of her. or
Ruin my
something.
life.
And, yeah.
Yeah, ruin your life.
Steer her in some crazy direction. Like now we're getting Harleys, and that's our life now, or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
No, but they saw over the years our growth,
Yeah,
within
sticking
our
it
church
out
and friendship.
and how
all
much
of
we
it.
loved each other.
Yeah.
So this whole relationship was maintained in the context of a church environment.
Oh,
the whole time?
absolutely.
Okay.
So out of high school, we both graduated, and we both took a year and did an internship at our church.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And, we got some funny stories there, but that's for another day. And yeah, we both were very involved. He was the music director at the time. I had done different administrative stuff at our church. So, and like I said, we both went through those heavy discipleship classes together. And so that's where
That
I
was
think
special.
it is special because a lot of our foundations of just our faith and understanding and growth. And it's not that we were like these amazing Christian people who had no struggles. Like,
Right.
oh my goodness, did we? But we knew what we both needed to lean on. We knew what we both had as center of our relationship. And that's the only thing that got us to where we are now. We just celebrated how many years, babe?
12 years.
Good job.
12
12
years,
years.
man. So
Last
yeah,
week, yeah.
y'all are in a great season now.
Yeah.
So what year did you guys marry? It was 19.
2011.
See, I'm dating myself. I think everything existed in the 1900s.
We graduated in 2007
Oh, my
and got
God.
married in 2011.
2011.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was the wedding like? What was all the fantasy stuff.
Megan's. Well, Megan
So
had been thinking about this her whole life.
Well, yeah. So in a nutshell, there were about 400 people at our wedding. It was beautiful. We got married in the round.
Oh wow. Okay.
And I could go on for days talking about it, but I think the most beautiful picture at our wedding was when, you know, and you're going to have this someday, but when the officiant says, who gives this woman to be married? And my dad was there and said, you know, her mother and I, and he kissed me and he passed me off to Jake. And I think the exchange that happened that day was deeper than I think anyone ever understood, because I had always been under the care of my parents, physically. I don't know if you're just listening to this, just to give a little picture. I've been in an electric wheelchair since I was 3 years old.
Since you were 3, okay.
And, you know, fully, I'm as you could tell, a strong, independent woman, but a very dependent person when it comes to my life and living every single day. And so I had lived in my parents' home and under their care until the day that I married. And so for them to trust Jake with literally my life and to know that he was laying his life down to care for me, I think that what happened in that moment was so beautiful. And those 400 people at that wedding knew exactly what that was.
See, that puts a whole new significance on the command, love your wife as Christ loved the church and gave himself for her.
And my parents knew what that was. They know what goes into my care on a daily basis. And they know that he didn't bat an eye at it. It did not faze him. He was like, absolutely, we got this. So
you guys realize your life story could literally be a Hallmark movie. I'm thinking, I was just, even as you guys were getting here, I witnessed it firsthand, and I've just noticed some of the nuances of just their interactions and their relationship. It takes on a whole new meaning of love to me. It's amazing. And I'm an old dude. I've been married for September will be 34 years.
Wow.
And so, but to watch this and just to see and to hear the heart, and all you got to do is be around them for 5 minutes and listen to their heart, and to be able to hear what your story and how it got to this point. And like you said, I have a daughter who's 18, so if you tell them one of those stories, Brandon's gonna have to come sit in my place. I'm gonna have to go back grab a towel.
No, it's beautiful, and God will provide those amazing husbands for your guys' daughters too, because it was more than I ever dreamed of and could have asked for. And, you know, we always like to joke and tell people, like, no, he doesn't even have sisters. Okay, let's just put it in that perspective.
Yeah.
Let alone, no, he doesn't have experience with a family member with a disability. That's not where people make the wildest assumptions.
Sure.
And I'm like, no, we truly were 2 young kids who fell in love, and that just came with it. And he was willing to go there.
Well, it's so inspiring. I mean, it's inspiring to see that love and to see that strength. And then to top it all off, both of you are creatives. Sometimes that's a mixed bag. You never know what you're doing when you throw 2 creatives in the mix.
That's where we're taking turns being cheerleaders for each other.
For sure.
And talking each other off the ledge on the highs and lows.
Yeah.
We make a great team.
We do. I think that's like the bottom line is, you know, our marriage advice to anyone is you guys are on the same team.
Yeah.
And there's times that the ball's in your court and there's a time it's not, but you're on the same team. And I think what's funny, what we've had to really, you know, since we've walked into this space of sharing our story more recently in the last couple of years, it's been a little bit of this unfolding, because he always struggled with feeling like, I don't want to be a hero because I love someone in a wheelchair.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, that is not what this is about.
Yeah, I tend to fight that a little bit.
Yeah. And it's not. And when you get to the depth of our story, you see that is very little. That's like the surface.
Oh, absolutely.
The things that we've had to walk through together, put that aside, they're just hard things, you know? And that's an added thing, but it's funny, the things that people assume.
They do. It's a lot of it is assumed in pure ignorance and just not knowing. And it just. But what does it look like as far as, and you mentioned being each other's cheerleader, and I kind of know the answer to this question, but I want them to hear your heart. So what does that look like? Because you're a musician, you're a producer, a great one at that, by the way, and I'm just getting to know that. I'm just learning. I've heard you play, and then I literally heard you play for weeks before I even knew someone, I believe it was a mutual friend, I believe Stacy Riddle told me, said, you know, Jake produces. He does production work for artists, you know, and I'm like, wow, okay. And then kind of our stuff that we've started jumping off into, man, it's a great thing. But I know, and especially being in Music City, sometimes the production work is feast or famine, even the musician thing.
Yeah.
So how does Megan keep you, as you say, keeps you from the edge of the ledge?
Yes. Yeah, well, I mean, so when you're doing freelance work or anything creative and stuff, things just come in waves.
Yeah.
Especially financially, and for that financial security and stuff like that, that's where you start to get like, oh, I can't make anything happen here. And I'm just kind of waiting for the phone to ring. So that's where we kind of take, because then when I do get a phone call, and then I'm gone, and that's a whole nother list of challenges. But we together, I feel like we just do a really good job of, when I'm beating myself up about, not being at whatever the new set goal is, because you achieve one and then completely forget that was ever a goal. And I'm still a failure until I reach my next one.
Move on to the next one. Yeah, absolutely.
So she helps me keep in perspective of like, man, if you knew you were doing what you're doing right now 10 years ago, you would have like pinched yourself to like, just to have even that kind of security and stuff. But then you get there and you reset goals. And that's where I think the creative kind of trap is you're always growing, but it's impossible to realize it yourself. You kind of need a little bit of help.
That's true. I remember sitting in y'all's living room about 2 months ago when I first came over to y'all's house and sitting there, and I didn't even know. I was like, I don't know I don't have any preconceived ideas about what our conversation is going to look like. I'm just going to talk. But the one thing I noticed, man, is how encouraging she was to you. Mm-hmm. And then the obvious encouragement that you are to her. Now, what does his encouragement look like when it's like, okay, now it's his time or your time to cheer him on? And so how does that play out?
Well, I think it depends on the seasons we're walking through.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of what God does is he gives you a partner who will be there to encourage you and uplift you, when you can't, and vice versa. For me, the seasons that we're in of being a mom to young children definitely is a hard one for me emotionally. And am I doing enough? Am I good enough? Those kinds of things. And he's just always reminding me, how loved our children are, and those kinds of things. And then with ventures of being creative on my own, on the days that I'm like, I am not qualified to do this, and he's like, yes, you are, because God's called you to do this. So, or just backing me, just like physically doing things, he's there setting up my stuff or going with me to my speaking engagements or whatever that looks like, to just encouraging me and pushing me to go beyond what I think I'm even capable of doing.
Right.
And I think we've just learned how to do that over the years. We've gone through hard seasons of, depression and working out, what does that look like? What's my role as a wife? What's his role as a husband here? Mm-hmm. And then we've gone through great seasons of, things are just flying, but still a team together. It's really cool. I think a lot of us, or a lot of people will assume it's like, the brains and the muscle, or the beauty and the muscle, when it's like, no, we promise you it goes a lot deeper than that for both of us.
Much deeper.
So the fact that your friendship is kind of the thing that started your relationship.
Totally.
That's still the core of everything.
And I think that's got to remain that way.
With benefits.
Yeah, friends with benefits. And the benefits are great. They're fantastic. Now, so then when you begin to be parents, how did that dynamic, what was that like? Take us back to when you first found out we're going to have a baby.
Oh, man. So we had been married for maybe 3 years at the time, around that. And we, obviously with my condition, there was a lot we needed to consider. So we went to a doctor and just kind of was waiting for the green light. We knew we wanted a family. So either way it was going to go, whether it was going to be adoption, surrogacy, whatever, we were like good with whatever route that had to be. And they were like, no, go for it. We think you can carry babies and you're going to be good and safe for everyone. So we found out, do you want me to pause? We good? Okay. So we found out we were...
I thought it was the stomach growling.
No, it's the dishwasher.
I'm sorry. Dadgum dishwasher.
I don't care. I didn't know if you want me to pause and wait for it.
That's awesome. Please, I'm sorry. I want to hear that story. That's beautiful. Okay. All right, good.
So we found out we were having a baby, and that surprised our entire family, because that was like, oh, this is new territory. Parenthood is the greatest gift, yet the hardest challenge, I think, ever. Yeah. Because you realize you have these humans that you're, in a sense, responsible for raising in the ways of the Lord. But I think what was really tricky is that was a really hard season, not because of having children, but just we were still newly married. Jake was walking through a lot of changes. Yeah. Even when thinking about this podcast being called MiDentity, I was like, okay, that's some big things we've walked through. Is how is our identity in Christ changed over the years of understanding we're not just musicians, we're not just a mom, we're not just married, like we're more than that in Christ. But it didn't come without some struggles to get there.
Yeah, it is a journey. I wish it would have been a red pill.
Yeah.
But I don't think we would have
Right?
appreciated the story and
We
the
wouldn't
journey
have.
and each other
Yeah.
as much without the process. Why? It's crazy why God designed it that way, man. That just you learn so much more, and there's so much more depth that gets created through a process and not a pill.
Yes.
I mean,
Ooh,
that's,
Man.
that right there.
Yeah,
so did
that's
you
good.
freak out when you found out the first time I'm going to be a dad?
Well, no, because I had no idea what that meant.
it's all new, man.
When we had our second kid, he was like, "Oh, here we go again."
Yeah, I don't
Take
know.
two.
When we had Bronx, I just like getting married, to a degree. I couldn't separate I am going to get married and what does that look like to I'm going to have a kid and what does that look like? I don't know it till I'm there.
Yeah.
So you're just able to live in the moment more than I'm used to, because I tried. I'm getting better, but anticipating everything and trying to take on all the frustration and worry and uncertainty of the
At
future.
one time.
Oh,
Yeah, and
No,
that's impossible.
I actually think Jake is I think it's kind of like a cursing and a blessing at the same time. But it was like when we were dating, he was like, okay, the finish line is the wedding day. Right?
There's nothing past that.
He couldn't even think past that. So then we got married, and then life hit us, and it was like,
There's a
we're
yellow
like
brick
married
road after
every
this.
day.
Yeah.
And same with parenthood. It was like, okay, well, he's going to be born on this day. We
that's
knew.
the finish line.
That was the finish line. I'm like, bro, that's just the beginning. I don't know what you're talking about.
Dude,
Yeah, that's just a perspective thing.
Yeah.
But man, it was great when we had Bronx. So we got all the doctor approval stuff saying it was safe for her to carry it.
Yeah.
And that was relieving. And we had a C-section to begin with.
Yep.
Well, for both really. But with Bronx, we just picked a date that was going to be, because they were mainly worried about her lungs getting too compressed
Right.
with the
Yeah.
baby growing and her always sitting and stuff. So
And they didn't want me to go into labor early. They just wanted everything planned. So he was born, and he had some complications, and he ended up being in the NICU for a month. And that was, let me
That was
tell you,
really hard.
as young parents, first time parents, we were 24 years old, and having your child and having to go home without your baby.
Oh, that's got to be tough.
Not expecting that, because they were like, everything's good, he's big, he's everything.
Yeah.
That was a really hard season, very, very hard. And so, and
all
then
these machines.
yep, and
You had
he
no time
was-
to process that. It was
scary.
no
a
time.
real time.
You know,
Yeah.
the processing that happened was when our friends who were amazing mentors of ours from the church sat with us in the hospital room, and I'm going, I don't know what's happening. I don't know if my baby's going to live. I don't know what's happening. And they just looked at us and were so encouraging and told us, you're going to look back at this a year from now and not believe the things God's done. And I held on to that. I was like, okay, if that's what you say, because I have no idea what's happening here.
And she was like a
She's
birth
a labor and
nurse.
delivery nurse.
Yeah, labor and
yeah.
delivery nurse. And
They call
so
them
it was like-
doulas.
No, she wasn't
Well,
actually
she's like a doula,
labor
but
and
a
delivery
nurse.
nurse. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
she would help the doctors take them out.
Yeah.
But she's been doing it for years.
And
it's
they
like,
had their
so,
own
okay,
experience
you
with
do
their
know
kid.
what you're
Yeah.
talking about. And
So
it
that's
had
like
to
all
wait.
we had to hold on to. And we walked through a hard journey. Our son was later diagnosed with cerebral palsy. And, as young parents, we were thrown into stuff that was all new territory, even
Yeah.
for me, even someone who has walked the road of the disability life her whole life. As a parent now to a child with disability, it was like, it was a whole new game, man.
Yeah. And Bronx is such a cool little guy,
He is.
man.
He's a special boy.
Oh, he really
He's
and
rocking it.
He is. And then how long after you had Bronx did you have?
Oh, well,
They're
only
20 months
20
apart.
months.
20 months apart. Wow.
So, I guess.
Well, yeah.
So you barely had time to
No.
regroup and recoil.
No, we
and
didn't.
okay, we're back
and
in the
his
game
dad
again.
kept saying, you know how this happens, right? And we're like, yes, thank you. Okay.
Don't need the instruction
Yes,
manual
we got
anymore.
it. Yeah, it's a blessing that they're that close.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah.
they were
It
really
was like
hard
raising
years.
twins, especially with Bronx having delays and then him Shy being so close. It was both in diapers, both kind of going through the same things.
And then we decided, no, this is where the supporting of each other, all of our support and family was back in Arizona. And we really felt like God was calling us to move. Well, I will say, I felt it first, and then I was like, wait, pump the brakes. And then Jake, I just kind of was following his lead, and we moved across the country with 2 babies. They were 2 and 3. And I don't know how we survived those first years,
Me
but
either.
we
It's like
did it.
a real blur.
We've traveled on the road. We've gone on tour with them. We've done all kinds of things, but God has just graced it, and it's been a fun life. But it's been a wild journey for sure.
Yeah, it really adventure. I mean, it's
Yeah.
the fact that it seems like it was such a compressed thing. It was so much stuff happening so fast, but you guys adjusted. I mean, I know it was probably obviously easy for me to say something the other side of the microphone,
man.
but it's just like you guys, there's such just a few times I've been around y'all, there's such a flow to y'all. I mean, it's inspiring, man. And and you guys are a generation, ahead of me or behind me or however, whatever the is, but you're younger than me basically. But it's inspiring to see that, and then to see those boys, man. I remember watching Bronx sometimes in church during worship and
He
stuff.
loves worship, yes.
So you're just standing across the way and you're just mesmerized. You're like, God, I realize I'm supposed to be focusing on you right now, but I really feel like I'm seeing a reflection of your heart by watching Bronx and seeing what's happening, and then of course just you guys and so I think. And here again, this is me. I don't consider myself a prophet. I don't have that on my business card yet. But you guys are, in a sense, you're pioneers. Yeah. Your story has been pioneer-like in the sense that it's not conventional, which really gets me excited because I love the fact that God does unconventional things. Yeah. And most of the time, he involves unconventional people.
Yeah.
Not to say that he won't involve conventional people. Yeah. It's just those are the ones that usually play close to the vest and want to manage everything. Yeah. But to see what you guys have done, I feel like the inspiration that you provide in your willingness to do the unconventional, to walk this path, and then to be in these moments. Yeah. And now, I just think there's so much that God's going to do through your life and through your story. Your talents, obviously, but your story, I think, is going to add depth to people. Your talents may inspire people, and they may get you work and may put food on the table and all that, and get you a summer home in Fiji or something like that. But it'd be nice, right?
Receive that from the prophet.
Yes. But I think your lives and your stories are going to give so much hope, man. And are going to lead people and lead them to a place of transformation, to coming back to understanding their identity and their journey. And hey, I'm unconventional and I'm weird, but you know what? That's God celebrates.
And that's
that.
Our hope with everything. I always say I'm a storyteller, and when it comes to just sharing my life with the world, but it's really not just to tickle your ears and that was a good story. Like, I want people to hear our story and see a connection. Yes, I think we're pretty unique in our situation. You probably won't go, oh, that's exactly me and my husband. Yeah. But if you can take anything from our story and say, okay, if they can get through that, or if they can tackle that, or if they can be brave enough to do that, I can do this. Yeah. Or I can see myself how God sees me this way. Yeah. That didn't come with, like I've said, without its own struggles and pulls. And I'll really say Jake has... I'm a little more like type A, a little more like I need it planned out. Yeah. Like, I'm creative, but not like a creative mind like that. Yeah. He's the risk taker, and he's taught me to hold on loosely. Money comes and goes. Chase after your dreams because they're not going to come after you, and just go for it. Like if you don't actually try this thing, you'll never get there. Yeah. And so that's the journey we've been on. And sometimes I have to remind him. He's taught me that, hey, don't forget, we're still doing this.
I'm the worst at taking my own advice.
Aren't we all though, man? It's like physician heal thyself. I mean, no, that's for you, but for me, I'm going to still stay in what I know. Yeah, you don't understand that. Go for it. Yeah, I'm cheering you on. So at this season in your life now, creatively speaking, and in just the dreams and goals that you're starting to realize, and where you're seeing them in the future, where are you at? I mean, Megan, I teased just a little bit before by saying, this is a no such thing love story, and now I'm going to say, let's just pull back the curtain on no such thing and tell the crowd what the significance of that.
Oh man, well the significance. It was a couple of years ago. I was out doing a speaking engagement somewhere, and my kids were running around in the background, and Jake was hauling us around and doing all the things. I think we had just landed from something, but we literally went from the airport to Georgia to go do this event, and it was chaotic and crazy.
For you speaking?
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that.
Remember that? Mm-hmm. And we're in the lobby, and people are wanting to come and talk to me. And I remember Jake just looking at me and being like, "Man, you really need to have like something to give them, like something to hand them when they come talk to you."
Yeah.
And as I'm watching my kids run around, I'm like, "Okay, maybe I'll start with like kid stuff, because that's the season I'm in. I'm a young mom, and it was like maybe a couple weeks later, we're sitting in our kitchen, and my younger son Shy was looking at me and was looking at his older brother Bronx, he doesn't walk. And he goes, "Mom, why are you and my brother not normal?" And he said, "Why are you and my brother not normal like me and Daddy?"
Oh.
And let me tell you, I wanted to be like, "Excuse me, let me tell you," And I would just felt this like, this is a teaching moment.
Sure, yeah.
And so we talked about it, and really all it was is he had questions. Mm-hmm. And from that moment, I knew this is something I have to speak into. And so,
our own kids.
if our kids have
Growing up
questions
around it.
I mean, my kids have been strapped to me in my wheelchair since birth. Like I would show up to Jake's worship practices or music practices with 2 kids literally tied to me. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so, and like if my kids have questions about people that are different with disabilities, things like that, then I know other families have these questions. How do you introduce these questions or topics? And so I wrote a kid's book called No Such Thing as Normal. But God really showed me it wasn't just this kid's book. And so he gave me this umbrella company called No Such Thing.
Yeah.
And it'll branch off into more things later down the road, I'm sure. But we did that for the last couple of years. I launched my book 2 weeks before the world pandemic. And so I had to learn how to pivot. That was my word for the year.
Yeah.
Because I had all these plans and great things mapped out of what I was going to be doing. And God was like, well, not God, but the world was like, no, you're not doing that. So everything shut down, and, we learned to pivot. And, I sold copies all through social media.
Yeah.
And so we've been using that platform to just share our story. And this past year, this is just my half, because we've got his journey too, that runs alongside each other. But this past year, I really felt like God was telling me to prepare. That was my word for 2022. And so I had gotten speech writing coaches and classes, and I was doing all these things, and I just could not nail down what is this next journey and this next step. And I've had people come to me like, "Oh, you should do this, you should do that," and just nothing was sitting right. And we've kind of been talking a little bit, but we sat at our anniversary dinner just a week and a half ago. And I've always known I was going to write a book, adult. Okay, I'm not allowed to say that. A big girl book.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know what the topic was going to be, And so we talked about it, and I said, I really think our book is supposed to be about marriage and about us,
beautiful.
and about the journey that God's taken us on, and to encourage other relationships or even individuals on no matter what is thrown at you, like you can get through anything. We have gone through death in the family. We've gone through everything, and far from perfect people, far from it. But if my story can encourage somebody, then it's worth writing. So that's kind of going to be what this next season will look like for me, writing.
So you're going to let Jake co-write?
I hope so, and I hope he'll at
I'll
least
do whatever you want.
There you go.
It all started with jumping in your lap. And now you've got him trained
I'm
to
already yours.
whatsoever you want me to do, baby. Sign me up for it.
No, I just think we have a cool, and when we engage together online, people love it, and they ask questions, and we love being transparent and authentic with people.
I think I just want the takeaway to be like, what's the best way to show love? And for us, it looks a certain way, and for other people, it might look different. But ultimately, like, what does love look like, and how do we show that?
Yeah. And he was just away this last weekend, and was sitting at dinner with this artist guy, and he was telling him the story of when I first saw you guys together. He was out on tour during the Christmas time, and I went into the green room to see him, and we're sitting there together, and Jake is literally like taking a bite of food, giving me a bite of food, taking a bite of food, putting a bite in my mouth. And I guess that just shocked him. We don't think twice about it, right? Because he's helping me.
Sure.
And he later tells Jake, like, "Oh, you showed me what it means to love my wife. Not that I have to physically feed her, but am I willing to do that for someone?
Yeah.
Like, would I? And the answer, we would say yes, but what
Right.
does that actually look like?
Sure.
And then for him to understand what it means when Jake goes on the road on tour, like that's a lot on us, but it's something that I want to provide, the ability for him to do, because that's his dreams. And our kids see that. They're like, okay, Daddy's gone for the weekend. I'm like, it's okay. This is what God's called him to do right now,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's the season we're in. And then musically, what do you?
Musically, man, I'm kind of trying not to define anything at the moment.
Yeah.
I think for the longest time I've put goals and vision towards like this should play out this way, and these are the steps to achieve these goals.
Right.
Or
And
this
right now-
means success if I do this.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. This is success.
Right.
Below this is failure.
Yeah.
And this is how I will obtain success.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just hasn't worked at all. So I think
It
I'm
doesn't.
going to go
It
back
doesn't.
to, man, I've just had the most growth and the most fulfillment when I just take what's coming. And not that I can't stir things up and excite my friends and stuff, but if
Yeah.
I'm just going out to like, oh, I want to be the best producer because then I can get the house in Fiji or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
sure.
that's probably not going to work, and like wouldn't be very fulfilling either.
No.
And guys like you, honestly, and people that just are excited about what they do and have passion, not just I wrote a song and I really want it to sound like Bethel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
Right.
whatever the thing is, getting around people that are exciting and just love what they're doing, and
Yeah.
it always takes me back. I was in this group called Saturated in Praise. It was like a hip hop, pop, rock. It was the most confused thing, but
Hybrid
great.
worship.
Oh,
man,
wait,
there was
what is it?
a girl sounds just like Rihanna,
Yeah.
most talented
Yeah.
girl singer. She was amazing, and then this big dude who was rapper,
Yeah.
and then a skinny little rapper guy, and me playing guitar.
And producing all the
That's
tracks.
pretty eclectic, man.
Very
Yeah.
eclectic.
Yeah.
But it worked. And more than what came out of it and stuff, like it had a lot of potential. We just couldn't get our stuff together as
Yeah.
far as like
Life.
yeah. And it's kind of again trusting God of like, well, if we did just keep going, that could have really damaged some people's journeys if we as a group don't have what we need to have together as leaders, and we're taking people down here and then just fall apart and explode, and then
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's someone else's excuse to
We've had to learn to trust
Fall
God.
away.
Yeah, trust the journey. As much as we want to see XYZ happen, it has been a trust journey for us all along the way.
So although that didn't pan out, man, we just it gave me so much life, and I want to just get back to that of just like, man, I want to do things
Yeah.
because it's fun and I love it, and I'm not afraid to work hard.
Yeah.
And I want those projects and things to be good, whether I'm playing live or producing or recording or whatever. But man, just out of the heart of let's do this because it is a passion.
Yeah.
And what gives you life? I mean, you've done things that have been really cool projects, and you walk away going, wow, well, I hit that benchmark, but that didn't feel as amazing as I thought.
Yeah. It's not fulfilling.
No,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
then he'll sit with you, Duran, seriously. And like the week before was on the ledge of like, I'm not doing music anymore. And then God just whoop, intertwines it right back and brings the passion right back because of your passion and your love for it.
Oh man.
And so we've constantly seen that of God just coming in at like, no, hold on. I got this.
Yeah.
You thought it was this way. It's this way. And I know that you've been on this journey of learning what the content and contending at the same time
Yeah, that's
looks
been
like.
the struggle.
That's the tension you live in, man.
It
That's-
is. It
yeah.
is. And it's like you swing hard one way or the other when I think the Lord wants you to understand both
Yeah.
and resting in that.
That's the key.
But that's a hard. That's
Oh,
hard for
it's
us.
yeah. Trust me, I'm 53, and that's
Yeah.
still a minefield sometimes. But
Yeah.
hearing your heart there on the music thing, there's a convergence happening right now, and it's great because I'm seeing it. This guy right here, Brandon Couch, is in the same boat. I've heard his heart. So I think back, I do an inventory. God, you're bringing all of these lives together. You're intertwining us, and yet we get together, and I'm thinking, what are we doing? What are you
Right.
doing? There's passion, there's ideas, there's vision, but God, how is this going to look?
Yeah.
And I get this sense that God is laughing when I ask him how it's going to look, because he's like, you'd really like to know, wouldn't you? But if it's my default, if I knew what it was going to be, I would feel compelled to help God bring that to pass
you would do
and
it.
get involved and, throw something in the spoke and derail the whole thing. But it's God wants me to maintain and wants you guys to maintain this awe and wonder and the excitement and the passion and knowing this is God putting this in me, but I don't have to be the one responsible for driving the train. And so God's just gathering relationships. He's gathering like hearts and passion, and we all have pieces that we bring to the table, but it's a common heart, a common vision, and it's gonna be so creative because God has already gone ahead before the foundation of the world, and He has prepared all this, and we've been coming into this. And so I think what you're going to start seeing, though, man, and I know personally, I introduced you to a friend of mine here a while back, and you've been spending some time with him, a producer guy, great dude. I married him and his wife, but I'm seeing these things happen. And I just get this image of a doting father where God is just grinning and He's just saying, the desires that I've put in their hearts, they're about to explode because they're just like, how do I make it happen? What do I do? But now, because there's some seasoning in all of our lives, age-wise and experience, we're learning how to settle into the chaos, the excitement and the passion, and just let God just place us and put it there and not worry about tomorrow. And God, that's hard for me. I mean, on so many levels. I mean, right now I'm thinking of God, I got all these dreams, so how are you going to fund all this stuff? Because when people are working with me, I want everybody blessed. I want everybody to experience the fulfillment and take ownership and stewardship over this as their own. So how's this going to look, Lord? And He's like, yeah, you'd like to know, wouldn't you? Just be in this moment, rest. And you guys are there. Y'all are part of that convergence, man. It excites me just sitting across from y'all, listening to you and hearing your hearts and just knowing. I told somebody yesterday, I said, I just know in my knower without any other word to describe it. It's just, in your spirit, this is about to be something really great. It's a culmination of some dynamite kingdom stuff that's fixing to unfold.
Yeah.
And y'all are part of it.
I think it's always reminding, like, God put those desires in you. You're not bringing them to Him and He's going, oh, I had no idea you were passionate about that.
Wow, that's news to me.
I didn't know. No, right? Like, He knows. So I just think, coming back to that journey of trusting Him is really what it boils down to. Because I'm the same way. I have all these business plans and ideas and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, God, now I need all the money to fund all this because I want to pay all these people. He's like, just one step at a time. Just one. I read this thing the other day and it was saying, is a book called Bird by Bird, and it's talking about writing, but it really applies to other areas of our life. But it says, it's like driving in a car with your headlights on at nighttime. You can get to your destination with just your headlights on. You don't see, when you leave, you don't see the destination from where you're at.
Right.
You can't see everything around you. You just see right here what's in front of you. And you can get the whole way there.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the journey with God. Right. It's like He's going to give us enough so we don't spiral out of control. But He will safely get us to that destination. Yeah. We just have to trust it. You know?
It's hard not to fixate on the destination.
Yeah.
But if you don't turn your lights on and start heading, you're never going to get there.
You're not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been so inspiring to be able to just share. We need to do a mini series, really, and do several parts. And maybe someday, we'll do a television show someday. I have no idea. And so we'll come back and get a bunch more of the story. But I do want to ask y'all 5 rapid fire questions. Yeah. Okay. I started to say something about lap dances, but I said, no, let's not do that. He's already talked about a lap here.
He's already covered that,
But these are just simply A and B.
Okay.
And y'all can both answer them, and you maybe separate, maybe the same, maybe not. But we're gonna put you on the spot here under the lamp. Okay. Got the heat lamp on right here. So, all right. Concerts or movies?
Well,
I already know my answer.
What is it?
Movies.
I would say movies too. I love concerts because they're super inspiring, but I can also be distractingly critical.
Yes, we'll go to concerts and he's like, I can tell like by the look on his, I'm like over here singing, and he's like, I wish they would turn that down, or oh yeah, that guitar pedal. I'm like, oh my goodness, you are not even listening.
So, but the goal is to leave like, oh, that was so awesome. I want to go play guitar now.
Right.
But most of the time,
so we'll say movies to be safe.
Say movies together.
Do the sub need to be 10 times louder than everything else? And so.
It's the producer, man. It's the curse of being a producer. Yeah.
Stay on the click.
That's it. See, come on, dude. You're dragging. The pocket just got ripped. So, morning person or night owl?
Night.
Night.
No, mornings are tough.
Even with kids, night owl.
Our
Really?
kids are night
Okay.
people.
Are they really?
From birth, our kids have been trained to be musicians' children. They go to bed at like 11 and they have slept until about 10
Yeah.
their whole life. Until we had to start going to school. And
Yeah,
that's
school's been a real. They're in 3rd grade now, and it's still really tough.
it's still really
adjustment.
hard for us.
Is it really?
Yeah, the 7 o'clock in the morning keeps coming, but we're just never ready for it.
But creatives don't want to go to bed because we're afraid we'll miss something.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
some
And-
source
and
of
I don't
inspiration
think
or
God's
something.
awake at 5 in the morning. So like,
No,
why
he's-
are we all awake?
No, man. He sends the birds to do that job, wake
I know.
everybody up at 5. He's like, I'll be there later.
I will say though that the days that I make myself get up and I start like working, I feel so. I'm like, it's 11. Do you know how much I've accomplished? But the days I sleep in, I'm like dragging.
Yeah. Now I do love sunrises. I flew to Atlanta a while back, and it was an early morning flight, and so as we were coming into Atlanta, I was looking out the window and saw the sunrise, and I cried. I cried like a baby, man. It's turned into a Hallmark channel. Okay,
I admire that.
We want to
make
get there. Yeah.
coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Oh, great, blessed people. All right.
I like tea.
I want to like tea.
Actually, I brought tea. That's
Did
what's
you?
in there. But that's
Okay.
only because if I had coffee, I'd be talking 20 times faster than I already am.
People listen to the podcast
They're
on
like,
2
"Whoa,
times
is she
speed.
on-
It's
yeah.
like Alvin and the Chipmunks, man.
So I did that on purpose.
All right, so I think I know the answer to this one, but rock and roll or pop?
Rock and roll.
Pop.
Oh, we have our first
100%.
conflict.
No. Yeah. I mean,
So,
Oh, let me tell you, yes. My walls were completely
Really?
plastered with, you could not see an inch of paint. They were covered with NSYNC posters.
so we got NSYNC and Dave Grohl here, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. My mom always jokes he's my Justin Timberlake. So.
I have to lean over toward Jake's side. I guess
I
I
know.
like
It's
the rock
okay.
and roll stuff. All right, so since we're movie people,
Yeah. Oh,
action or comedy?
comedy.
comedy. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I do like action though.
Well, let me add a third one, or a rom-com, or a
Definitely
girl.
not rom-com.
I love rom-coms.
I'm
you
working
do?
on it, but
Yeah.
even any kind of intense emotion, definitely not
Okay.
scary.
I love suspense movies, and
Okay.
he will not watch anything that's going to rise an emotion out of him.
Oh.
Or he won't go to sleep.
We're talking thriller and horror too.
I don't
the
like
whole thing?
horror.
Yeah, I don't do. Horror.
I don't do horror, and I don't do anything like that has like spiritual ties to it. It just freaks me out.
Yeah,
'Cause I
I
know that
can't
stuff's
do-
real.
yeah.
But I like suspense. Like I like keep you on the edge of your seat.
Okay, so detective shows, or those kind of
Yeah, oh,
things.
yeah.
Yeah, she can watch that. And then for the next month, I'm just checking behind the shower curtain. like,
So I don't watch
Scared out of
them
my
off.
mind.
So we stick with comedy just to
Yeah,
be safe.
comedies are great, man. I still to this day, if I'm channel surfing and
Yeah.
I see Dumb and Dumber,
Yeah.
it's
You're
not that
stopping.
channel's not moving, and I can quote that whole movie.
Me
and it's,
too.
I've always been inspired because Jim Carrey acts like a complete fool. The things that I would get spankings for growing up, and he gets
Sure.
paid millions of dollars
Yeah,
for it.
he does.
And now I hear he's found Jesus, so that's pretty cool.
Really?
Yeah, I saw a video clip of Jim Carrey talking about fire.
Wow.
Hey,
That's
Jim,
amazing.
if you watch the
Yeah,
MiDentity
if you're
podcast,
watching this.
all right, so we feel like we have really delved into the depths of Planet Desjarnet. So it has been an honor to have y'all, man. I've been looking forward to this.
thanks for having us.
I love you guys. I can't wait just to watch your story continue to unfold, and
Yeah.
I'm excited about being a part of some of those chapters, man, and y'all being a part of our chapters, and we're all in each other's chapters. So thank you guys again. Love you guys. Love on the boys for us, and thank you guys for tuning in to the MiDentity Podcast. We will see you next time. Hey, thank you so much for stopping by. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the MiDentity Podcast. We're excited that you tuned in and you made an investment of your time into this podcast. It means a lot to us here. I want to encourage you to stop by every week because we've got new episodes baking in the MiDentity kitchen, and they're going to inspire, they're going to encourage you, they're going to give you something to make it through your week. So I want to invite you to click the little subscribe button here on YouTube, and not only on YouTube, but you can also subscribe on whatever podcasting platform you get your podcasts on. You can follow, like, and listen every week. As each new episode comes down the pipe, you're going to love it. And we are honored that you spend the time here with us on the MiDentity Podcast. We'll see you soon.